It's a great privilege to talk to you about futuristic warfare technologies. I have a lot of interest in technologies, and that is why I have chosen this topic. How would we anticipate a future war? Probably in the 2040s or 2050s. I'm not speaking on behalf of any organization or country, just the facts available freely on the net I've gathered to present this talk. War is defined as an active conflict that can claim around 1,000 lives. Has the world ever been at peace? For the past 3,400 years, humans have been entirely at peace only for 8% of recorded history. If the estimate of the total number of people killed in wars are 150 million from the beginning, just in 20th century alone, 108 million people were killed. That's why 20th century is called the bloodiest century. If 20th century is called the bloodiest century, how will our future warfare be? It would be a combination of chemical, biological, nuclear weapons along with ballistic missile technology and weaponized artificial intelligence technologies. Due to that, there is a possibility even weak states and small groups who have developed great technologies can attain a catastrophic power to strike great nations. Armed with a single vial of a biological agent, small groups of fanatics or failing states could gain the power to threaten great nations and even threaten the world peace in the decades to come. We must confront the danger with open eyes and with unbending purposes. That is why every civilian should know about warfare so that we can develop technologies to safeguard ourselves in every area. Right now, we are fighting this coronavirus crisis. And so let me start with the bio warfare. Just as the 20th century was a century of chemistry and physics, the 21st century was emerging as the century of biology. It will forever change how living organisms will be viewed because of the biotechnological revolution in altering and replacing genetic materials. Biotechnology has already transformed scientific applications in the field of medicine, agriculture, and other biological industrial areas. The term is defined as the fusion of biology and technology. That is biotechnology, just like human genome sequencing. The bright side of advancement in biotechnology is offering great promise in improving human health and combating diseases. The dark side can be used maliciously or negligently to destroy human life. What is biowarfare? It is the intentional use of microorganisms and toxins to produce diseases and death in humans and in livestock and even in crops. Such bioweapons are used in war or in even terrorist attacks. What is the reason for such? Because it's easily accessible. We can easily access to a wide range of disease-producing biological agents. It has a low production cost. It is very difficult to be detected by routine security services. It has an easy transportation from one place to another. That's why it's called poor man's atom bomb. It can even offer terrorist groups and rogue states to counter the overwhelming military superiority with such a small vial of bioweapon. Imagine a suicide bomber going through the airport security system. With sensors employed in terminals, chances for this suicide bomber is very high. He will be detected fast and he can be detained. But now if the same suicide bomber is going through the airport security system, but instead of having a bomb, now he is injected with a genetically engineered virus capable of transmitting a highly virulent disease that could be triggered at the time chosen by the perpetrator. How it will be imagined. Take this particular case of coronavirus. Why it's extremely contagious and fatal? Because viruses are parasites. in by nature. They can only survive and multiply if they are fused with the cell of a host. The host can be humans, animals, plants, or bacteria. Viruses are the simplest microorganisms. They are much smaller than even bacteria and consist of a protein containing the genetic material in the form of RNA or DNA. Each virus requires its own unique type of host cell for multiplication. And once the interaction between the cell and the virus occurs, it can infect all other cells. Biowarfare, if you can trace back to a many years back, you can trace the history. Man has used poisons for assassination purposes ever since the dawn of civilization. Not only against individual enemies, but also such weapons are used against armies. When sometimes we have studied in history that armies have used the bodies of plague victims and have catapulted it outside the city to contaminate others, or even they have mixed the blood of leprosy patients in the wine to be given to the enemies. The German army was the first to use weapons of mass destruction, both biological weapons and chemical weapons during the First World War, though their biological weapons were rather on a very small scale. In North America, it was not the government, but Sir Frederick Banting, the Nobel Prize winning scientist, the discoverer of insulin. He initiated a bioweapon research program. He created what could be called the first biological weapon research center in 1940 with the help of corporate sponsors. But soon afterwards, the US government was also pressed to perform such research by the British allies because along with the French, they feared a German attack. Instead of a biological weapon, Britain developed the first electronic warfare equipment called the radar technology. Robert Watson Watt was asked to develop a biological weapon, but he ended up in finding this radio detection, and he proved it worked on a large scale. And this weapon called radar, radio detection and ranging, were able to find the German aircrafts and protect Britain. And radar was the reason that Britain won the war. But they were not able to develop a death ray. But during the Second World War, the Nazis apparently never seriously considered using biological weapons. But the Japanese embarked on a large-scale program of bioweapons. They developed such weapons during the Second World War and eventually used them in their conquest of China. Several tons of thousands of these deaths were due to the deliberate release of pathogens or toxins, mostly by the Japanese during their attack on China during the Second World War. To develop their own germ warfare capability, the Japanese military performed something wrong. They killed thousands of Chinese prisoners by subjecting them to experimental doses of anthrax, cholera, plague, and other pathogens. These prisoners were often subjected to excruciating vivisections without even the use of anesthesia to observe the real-time effects of these deadly diseases. This was done under the leadership of Dr. Shiro Ishii, Unit 731. He almost subjected 3,000 to 250,000 innocent men and women and children to cruel experiments and medical procedures that were carried out by the brightest medical students of Japan. Later, two international treaties were developed in 1925 and 1972, but these biological weapon treaties have largely failed because most of the big countries are still producing big biological weapons. After World War II, the two big continents launched full-scale bioweapons program, which included the development of aerosol sprays capable of delivering bacterial and viral agents through plane or ballistic missiles. The agent of choice for most biological warfare program is anthrax bacteria. They produce extremely lethal spores and breathing difficulties in large amounts. They are easy to produce and they remain viable for more than 100 years if they are kept dry and out of direct sunlight. This long shelf life makes them well suited for weaponization. And that's why many of the countries have stockpiled plenty of anthrax. A professor of biological sciences and applied physics at Stanford said that smallpox represents a direct threat to the entire world. Even though the disease is eliminated, frozen stocks of smallpox viruses are still maintained by the governments of big countries. Other than this anthrax, smallpox, and other conventional biological agents, the most frightening one is called the black biology, a shadowy science in which microorganisms are genetically engineered for the sole purpose of creating novel weapons of terror. It is a manipulation of genes to create new pathogenic characters like increased survivability, increased infectivity, virulence, drug resistance, and so on. Organisms with altered characteristics are the next generation biological weapons. The Human Genome Project has decoded the alphabet of life and provided a human molecular blueprint. Genetic maps of deadly viruses, bacteria, and other microorganisms already are widely available in the public domain. For example, a leading scientific journal published an entire genetic code for the cholera pathogen. Any legitimate researchers are now in the process of mapping the genome of many viruses. Anybody who is bent on destruction can use this information and can clone extremely virulent strains of bacteria and viruses. That's why we need to be very careful. The next comes the stealth virus. What is a stealth virus? It's a cryptic viral infection that covertly enters human cells. And then it remains dormant for an extended time. But a signal by an external stimulus could trigger the virus to activate and cause disease. Other than the stealth virus, there is also this host swapping disease. What is a host swapping disease? Vast majority of virus does not cause any disease. In nature, animal viruses tend to have a very narrow, well-defined host ranges. Unlike bacteria, viruses can only infect one or two species. When a virus has a primary reservoir in an animal species and it is transmissible to humans also, it's called the zoonotic disease. Animal viruses tend to have a natural animal reservoir where they reside and cause no damage or little damage. Such reservoirs are birds and rodents, but the bird is thought to be the reservoir for Ebola virus. Chimpanzee is thought to be the reservoir for HIV virus that causes AIDS. But when these viruses jump species, they cause significant damage. When this happens naturally, the process results in an emerging disease. If it is induced by man, it is bioterrorism. In the laboratories of inspired, determined, well-funded bioterrorists, an animal virus can be genetically modified and developed specifically to infect human population. See, these are some of the paths to enhance bioterrorism. But next, we can also use science to defeat bioterrorism. Understanding the human genome is very important. Boosting the immune system, how to boost, it's also very important. Understanding viral and bacterial genomes is very important. Then bioagent detection and identification equipment has to be developed. New vaccines have to be developed. New antibiotics and antiviral drugs are very, very important. So these are some of the ways we can help us in protecting us from bio warfare. So other than bio warfare, the next warfare we can see is network-centric warfare. To fight a war in the 21st century means fighting an enemy who is everywhere and nowhere at the same time. Such an enemy might not be trained in battle formations or military strategy. He might not be very uniform. There might not be any battle lines. Anywhere in a targeted country is a free fire zone. A solitary person can destroy a group of soldiers and their vehicles using an improvised explosive device or a rocket. 21st century weapons require that soldiers are constantly on their guard and ready to fight. And this need for always on preparedness has changed the way military collects and uses intelligence that ended up with network-centric warfare. The network technology produces advantage on the battlefield. Initially, man was a hunter. Then he became an agriculturalist. Then he became an industrialist. Now we are in the information age. That is why network-centric approach to warfare is very important. It links all military assets to each other and to decision makers via computer, radio, data networks, enhancing the way military objectives are accomplished because of information superiority. It is also called as C4ISR: command, control, communication, computers, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance. A robustly networked force improves information sharing. Information sharing and collaboration enhances the quality of information and shared situational awareness. Shared situational awareness enables self-synchronism. Everything improves totally mission effectiveness. So now this is called network-centric warfare. The decision to use a lethal weapon in battle against enemy has been a decision till this time it was made by human beings. But in the future, this is going to change. Modern advancement in artificial intelligence, machine image recognition, and robotics have made the world's largest military to come to the edge of a new future, where weapon systems may find and kill people on the battlefield without even human involvement. A robo can become a killer robo. Russia, China, and the United States all are working on such autonomous platforms that pair weapons with sensors and computers. Britain and Israel are also using such weapons with autonomous characteristics. Take a hypothetical situation of a warfare filled with killer robots. Now soldiers are there on both sides of the nation. They are on routine border patrol, each side accompanied by an autonomous weapon system. The soldiers are doing their normal routine border patrol, but they are having with them autonomous weapon systems. A tracked robo armed with a machine gun and an optical system that to identify threats and all these things. Suddenly, one of the patrol converges on an uneven ground. Suddenly he trips. A soldier trips and accidentally his rifle is discharged. Now what happens? The enemy side, the killer robo records the gunshots and instantaneously determines the appropriate response to what it interprets as an attack. In less than a second, both side robots commanded by algorithms turn their weapons on the human targets and fire. When the shooting stops, a dozen lie dead or injured on both sides. Who is supposed to be blamed for this attack? Under what circumstances can and should militaries delegate the decision to take a human life or give the authority to missions? We need to be very careful in using our technologies to protect ourselves. So in network-centric warfare, the main thing is, as I said, command and control. Command and control becomes part of electronic warfare becomes part of this command and control. Next comes communication, then comes computers, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance. So now we are going to go to command and control warfare. So what is command and control warfare? In command and control warfare, we have so many warfares like psychological warfare, electronic warfare, and so on. Now, let me take you to an understanding to teach you about electronic warfare. Today, almost everybody are familiar with fighter aircrafts, battle tanks, warships, and submarines. A majority of people have seen them in action either directly or through films. But there is another kind of invisible fight involving the use of radio and radar emissions is always going on in the atmosphere. We are surrounded always by waves, electromagnetic waves that travel at the speed of light, right from the frequency of the radio waves, microwaves, terawaves, light waves, gamma rays. All these things are part of electromagnetic spectrum. So now the silent battle of beams using this electromagnetic spectrum is called the electronic warfare. The battlefield of electronic warfare is global, and it is why it's called an electronic. It's strictly not electronic. It's not conducted using electrons, but it is through electromagnetic waves. So the entire region of electromagnetic waves can be used. Because of this, some people also call this as electromagnetic warfare. During Second World War, as I already said, Winston Churchill asked Robert Watson Watt to develop a radar. That's why he coined the words wizard war or battle of beams. The most anticipated term for this field is electronic warfare. In June 1982, another fierce battle took place. It's called Lebanon War. It was fought between Israel and Lebanon in the Bekaa Valley. By mid-June, Israeli forces reported the destruction of 86 Syrian aircraft, including Soviet-built Macayan MiG-23 flights and 5 French-built helicopters. The Israelis reported that they had lost only 2 helicopters, but they have destroyed many enemy forces. In this war, what made Israelites to win the war? It is electronic warfare. The Israelis made use of a special type of deception technique called decoys. Drones and remotely piloted vehicles can be used like that to know the location and characteristic of the enemy operating systems and weapons. So this led to a stunning defeat of Lebanon forces and an incredible victory of Israeli forces. Israeli Air Force played a dominant and decisive role because they could capture the electromagnetic spectrum. They had a powerful electronic warfare system. So that's why this electronic warfare is very, very important. Another element that contributed to the Israeli success was the coordinated use of AWACS, Airborne Early Warning and Control System, and electronic countermeasures against enemy command and control system. Russian media had claimed once that the Russian military had developed technology capable of neutralizing an adversary's aircraft, ships, and missiles within a 5,000-kilometer radius. The Russians claimed that once a Russian aircraft warplane had successfully tested the electronic jamming device on a US warship, the destroyer Donald Cook, in the Black Sea. The report, which used a mock-up simulation to demonstrate the effects, they did a mock round. But during that incident, a Russian Su-24 bust the US Donald Cook in the Black Sea within 300 meters for some 90 minutes. The classic struggle between the lance and the shield, the gun and the armor, the missile and the electronic systems will no doubt continue the form of fights. So everything is basically dependent on radars, which is used for protection, drones and electronic deception techniques, electronic jamming techniques. I would show you how it has been done through a PowerPoint presentation. This is the entire electromagnetic spectrum, starting from the radio waves, microwaves, infrared, visible, ultraviolet, X-ray, and gamma ray. So this is the only area which we can see with our visible eye. Nothing else, even though we are surrounded by these waves, we cannot see them. Now, this radar has influenced every area. You can see the Doppler radar image seen on a TV weather news. You can find whether a hurricane is coming. Its hurricane forecasting can be done because of radars. If in this case, you are using a Terra satellites, Aqua and Terra satellites, they use infrared data to monitor smoke. For example, forest fires can be easily found using infrared imaging. Take this image. This is done. This is a normal visual image. It shows a truck, some smoke, and a mountain in the background. But now you use that infrared imaging. It shows both target and it shows the truck and the helicopter too. And now if you merge these two, you will get a better image. That's why people use the complete electromagnetic spectrum in space science to image everything completely in a proper way to get the understanding of galaxies and others. So here, what is radar? We were talking about radar, but what is a radar? Radar is an acronym for radio detection and ranging. Now I have an object here. I wanted to know what distance the object is at, what is the range of the object, whether the object is coming towards me or moving away from me. Might be this can be an aircraft that can bomb my country. So I need to know where it is, how it is, and what is the frequency, whether it's coming towards me, going away from me. So range, altitude, direction, speed, all these things can be measured using this radar. It has an area. See, now the target enters. The echo pulse is received from the target, transmitting pulse from here, and the reflected pulse are measured. Now, how would you measure the target speed? If a car comes towards you, the frequency, you can see the sound increases. If an ambulance, take it as an ambulance. If the ambulance comes towards you, the sound increases. If the ambulance goes towards away from you, it decreases. In the same way, if an object moves towards the antenna, it increases the wave frequency. If it moves away, it decreases the wave frequency. That is why we can easily find, for example, this is a pulse. This is transmitted here. It goes and hits it and comes back. So now the time taken for the pulse to go and return back, that time is directly proportional to the velocity and the distance. So now by calculating the time, you can easily calculate the distance of the target. So now this electronic warfare, what we were talking about, consists of electronic support measures and then electronic countermeasures and electronic countermeasures. So what are these? Electronic support measures. If an enemy comes to attack you, you should support your own system. And you should not allow your system to be detected by the enemy. What is electronic countermeasures? So now when the enemy tries to attack you, you jam that signal. You send a powerful beam of frequencies over a wide range so that the enemy cannot see you properly. So that is electronic countermeasures. Now, an enemy is using the electronic countermeasure technique on your aircraft. What can you do? Now you can use electronic countermeasures, like it can be anti-active, it can be anti-passive, like how electronic countermeasures can be active or passive. So this is some of the basic principles of electronic warfare. This is forming a part of command and control warfare. So main thing is you attack and protect. You should protect your own system, and you should also attack enemy's decision making by attacking their information, their communication. So these are the two processes. For example, now I have a enemy terrorist at one place. I need to know what sort of protection equipments he has and what sort of thing I can use against them. So this way I can plan the enemy's place and I can attack that enemy. I'll give you a little example of one which is already available in the net.
looks ahead. Continue forward and make right. MiG-29 threat detected. Qs 1 and Qs 2 will engage. Qs 1, contact 360, 25 Angel, 30, engage. Qs 1, Fox 3. Liverpool 1 defending SA-19. All assets, aircrafts ground the threat. Liverpool 1, plane, proceeding to target area. Engaging target area. Liverpool 1, target destroyed. Qs 1, maritime.
I would like to explain to you what is electronic warfare. It uses the electromagnetic spectrum or some sort of directed energy to attack a target or impede a target from performing specific tasks. You can use laser or you can use high power microwaves. Such things can go and target the enemy electronic system, and a whole bunch of enemy system gets destroyed. You can destroy a drone by sending powerful laser beams and the drone falls down. You can destroy the same drone using powerful high power microwaves. So as I said, the battle in Lebanon proved beyond any shadow of doubt that the result of future battles will depend more or less on the quantity and the quality of the aircraft, warships and tanks, and also on mainly electronic warfare technologies. So the electromagnetic technology is very, very important for us. That's why from the beginning, Winston Churchill and many other leaders were after it. I wanted to give you an example. For example, assume that you are a ship captain. Now you are a Navy captain and you are going in your ship. Every ship which has power, which has been switched on, will emit a signature out into space. Now, your ship can have multiple signatures. For example, it can have a heat signature and it can have an electromagnetic signature. Both it emits, and because of propulsion, external and internal hard points, you have such signatures. The signature can be changed based on the activities you are doing it. So now when the ship is switched off, it won't emit any signatures. Now, infrared is coming because of the heat emitted by your ship into space, like weapons, engines, components inside that generates heat. Electromagnetic signature comes because of anything that is powered by electricity will emit electromagnetic spectrum. The cockpit will emit electromagnetic signature, which is a lot of display system, computer system, wire, and all such things. These are the hot spots of electromagnetic signature. Anything that consumes electromagnetic power will emit electromagnetic signature. Now, ships, energy weapons, shield generators, power plants all emit electromagnetic signatures. Now, this orientation of the ship also, if you change the profile, if you change, your signature will change. The bigger your ship, the more it can be easily detected. That is why sometimes people use stealth technology to modify your ship hull to minimize the visibility for an enemy. Specialized plating on the ship's hulls are sometimes used. These are called stealth technologies. Ships, for example, ships radars and ship has a radar and it has a scanning system. We saw about radars, how it detects and how it finds out. Now, when your ship detects some other ship in the sea, what are the information you get? Range of the target, angle of the target relative to your ship, and the velocity of the target. Sometimes you can also detect stuffs like weapons, what kind of shield they are using. Now you can use two type of scanning. One can be omnidirectional, that where your scanning is in front of you, you can just a wide range of scanning. Otherwise, it's a narrow focus. It concentrate on one region. A more narrow focus will increase your scanning strength. But if your target has a hot signature, if you reduce your scanning, if you have a narrow scan, they can easily find out your presence also. So your radar will be more visible to other ships. So now there's passive scanning and there is an active scanning. This passive scanning, what they do is unwary ships will come and their signatures can be picked up by your ship. You're scanning in every direction and it uses a low scanner power. But if it is active scanning, you're deliberately planning the role of a hunter, deliberately searching for signatures of other ships. The scan can be narrow or omni-focused. With narrow focus, you can get more information coming to your ship. But as I said, this produces more signatures from your ship to the other. So you should be very careful, and for each place, what sort of things I can use. And similarly, electromagnetic pulse you can use as an electromagnetic warfare. Like powerful microwave beams can be used to jam other ships. And strong electromagnetic thin pulses can be sent and that can be fired from your ship. This causes an automatic shutdown of all the ships, the enemy ships, computer systems, everything. You send a high-powered microwave from your ship to them, then that can shut their ship down. So that is very important because it's a small spike of high-powered microwaves can enter through their antenna and can burn their some of their electronic system, making their ship not to function properly. Defensive electromagnetic warfare techniques. You can use flares. You are tracked by another ship. You can send flares to mask your signature. You can use shafts. It can use as a temporary heat shield outside the ship. You can use data shaft that guards against your e-warfare weaponry systems. Decoy missiles. It will transmit a signature which will mimic the signature of your ship. So now when another ship tries to scan your ship, instead of latching on to your ship, it will latch on to the decoy missile and thinking that that is the original ship. So this sort of deceptions are normally used to deceive the enemy. And also you can modify your ship profile by altering the skin or altering the material. So many things you can do to protect yourself from the enemy. This electronic warfare, as I said, it's made of electronic attack and electronic protect. Electronic attack can be jamming, transmit noise on those frequencies and jam the enemy, deceive him, send wrong information like we saw in the ship, how to mislead them and by sending out decoys, and directed energy to harm or destroy the environment. These are all electronic attack. Electronic protect, you modify your radar and making it hard to be jammed. Modify the chaff and torch, modify the platform. These are some of the electronic warfare. Deception, trickery, deception can be used. Even people use psychology of the enemy to deceive them. Many times in the war, the psychological defense have been used from the beginning. I wanted to show you one picture of an electronic attack.
The EA-18G Growler is a key part of every air attack squadron. Its primary purpose, to shut down the enemy's radar. One way the Growler does that is by doing something called jamming. Here's how it works. The Growler has a receiver on each wingtip. These receivers search out the radar signals on the enemy's surface-to-air missiles. The information travels to a computer in the Growler's cockpit. Within milliseconds, the computer analyzes the signals and and identifies them as safe or a threat. If they're a threat, the Growler activates one of its jamming pods.
Per the configuration, we can have up to 3, one on each wing, and they'll be the same. And then we also have the one here on the center line.
The jamming pods overwhelm the enemy's radar by sending out electronic noise. This allows friendly fighters to sneak unseen past enemy lines. The Growler doesn't just jam the enemy, it can inflict physical damage too.
Our primary mission is jamming. However, a secondary mission we have is using the HARM, as you see here on the wing.
HARM stands for High-Speed Anti-Radiation Missile. It's specifically designed to hone in on the surface-to-air radar's electronic signals.
The HARM zones in on where the enemy radar is, and then looks to explode over it.
So what do you feel? This is a beautiful way. It is this video gave you an idea of electronic attack. Now this electronic countermeasure, when a person is coming to attack us, you can send a wide range of signals over wide frequencies to jam them. So clutter and jamming can desensitize radar. So this jammers generate a noise-like signal in the radar's frequency band. There are a number of different types of noise jamming, like spot jamming and barrage jamming. You can spot at one point, you can that frequency or over a barrage of frequencies you can jam. I wanted to show you about how Russians are so powerful in developing electronic countermeasures. You can see this one, it's very interesting.
Right now in Syria, we're in the most aggressive EW environment on the planet from our adversaries. They're testing us every day, knocking our communications down, disabling our AC-130s, etc.
Unbelievable. That is alarming, and that came from the head of U.S. Special Operations, saying EW, as you heard him say there, electronic warfare, is now one of the military's biggest problems in Syria. Our enemies are able to disable American planes that are providing air support to U.S. commandos on the ground. That is not a good situation. The generals go to Russian forces jamming the U.S. drone.
See, the next is, as I said, about stealth technology. It uses design, material, and advanced technology to ensure that a warship or submarine will avoid the detection. It can either deflect the radio waves by shaping the surface, or it can absorb the radio waves by some coatings. For example, you see the shape. In this shape, if a radar is sending a signal, it reflects a signal back, and the radar can find this aircraft. But now if I shape the aircraft like this, the reflected signal is not returning back to the radar, it is going away. So this sort of different angles can protect your aircraft by reducing the radar cross sections. And another technique is you can make the angular design such that it can deflect the incoming radio signal. The RAM coatings also, along with the surface texture, absorbs and converts incoming radiations into heat energy. So ships and submarines using stealth technology are almost undetectable by radar. They can be used for secret missions because they are not noticeable. So this ends the electronic warfare technologies. Next comes the cyber warfare. What is a cyber warfare? In future might be you have to worry, if you are living for many decades, you might have to worry about a Terminator knocking on your door. Weapons that can operate like human soldiers might not be a possibility in the immediate future, but after many decades, it's going to happen. Right now, we have many weapon systems that are using artificial intelligence. In the weaponized artificial intelligence or algorithmic warfare, we pool the military's data into a modern cloud platform. And then using the machine learning services, such platforms are made to analyze that data. We normally think that sharp knives can help the military to save lives. But in the case of weaponized artificial intelligence, the knives in question aren't particularly sharp, Algorithms are made to recognize, to shoot down or drop a bomb on personnel with a specified signature called signature strikes. Due to this, the line between civilian and combatant can be highly porous in the future warfare. These are drone attacks on individuals whose identities are unknown, but who are suspected of militants based on some signatures, like vague as being a military-aged male in a particular area. So it's such a vague thing. So many male with that military-made males can be killed. So now also the increase in the computing power is becoming great. We have developed supercomputers and parallel computers. Now, to increase the power, we are also entering into the quantum era. Quantum computers are stepping in to save our day. What is quantum computer? Quantum physics has defied logic because it turns out that atoms do not follow the normal traditional rules of physics. Quantum particles can move forward or backward in time. Then they can exist in two planes at one time, even teleport. It is the strange behaviors that quantum computers aim to use to their advantage. Classical computers manipulate ones and zeros to crunch through operations, but quantum computers use quantum bits. Just like classical computers use one and zeros, quantum computers use ones and zeros, but they have a third state called superposition, because of which it allows them to represent a 1 and a 0 at the same time. Instead of analyzing a 1 and a 0 sequentially, superposition allows 2 qubits or 2 quantum bits in superposition to represent 4 scenarios at the same time. Now think, the time it takes to crunch a data is significantly reduced because of quantum computing. Therefore, it is quite faster, but it is very difficult because it has to operate at absolute zero when we get into such computers. Now, this artificial intelligence with such quantum computers are going to transform our lives. It's going to touch every aspect of society. The world is going to be even worse than now. There can be killer robots everywhere. Take an existing predator drone and you replace a human pilot with a computer. This is technically possible. The attractiveness of such technologies is obvious. The weakest link in a drone is the radio link back to base. But drones that have been sabotaged by jamming their radio link is the main problem. If you can make the drone fly, track, and target for itself. If you can develop such a drone, you have the perfect weapon, because till now, the weakest link you have removed. So now such a drone will never sleep. It will fight 24/7. It will have superhuman accuracy and reflexes. There are, however, many reasons that can go wrong. Like I said, that it will just hit an object based on signatures. But it's going to be revolutionary. You are seeing here cyber warfare using remotely operated navigation equipment. So now the flight can be autonomous or remotely operated by a pilot. So what autonomous means, it's completely autonomous on its own, it can work. Or it can be remotely operated by the pilot from the ground. You can see here, this is a mule, it's a quadruped robo. It can climb on a dangerous mountain and difficult terrain where humans cannot even climb. And this is a search and rescue operations drones are employed. Can fly above 18,000 to 29,000 feet above sea level. And such predators armed with the weapons were used to assassinate high-profile individuals, like where they were Al-Qaeda terrorists and others. Osama bin Laden was killed in one such attack. So what is an autonomous vehicle? Now, if you combine robotics with artificial intelligence, you get artificially intelligent robot. So this artificial intelligence, what it is? It's a system that think like human. It's a system that act like human, that think rationally, that act rationally. So how is it built in? It has if you want to see this a particular humanoid, you can see it can be made for two purposes. One is to use the power of computers to augment human thinking, just how we use motors to augment human or horsepower. Like robotics and expert systems are some example of it. The other method is to use a computer's artificial intelligence to understand how humans think. That is the humanoid way. If you test your programs not merely by what they can accomplish, but how they can accomplish it, they are really doing a cognitive science. You are using artificial intelligence to understand the human mind. But how Honda's Asimov work? It's able to walk freely, can change the stride speed, it's able to balance on one foot, it's able to climb stairs, it's able to manipulate objects, space, and cost efficient. It's even able to, based on visual cues, it can perceive an object. It is currently, and you have a pre-registered voice, pre-registered shape. Based on that, it can recognize a person. So this is going to be a very important game changer. This is going to influence the warfare scenario. Now, the final one is, now we have seen first is biowarfare, then we saw electronic warfare, then we saw cyber warfare. Now, everything, if you want to integrate together, Internet of Battlefield Things, IoT. So the future mainly depends on such things. Internet of Battlefield Things. It consists of military robots with autonomy. It has situational awareness. It has killer swarms, and it has killer robots. Everything networked with internet, television, and phone. Every data packets are given. Every IP address are localized and tracked, and machines and devices with RFID chips are made so that they can communicate with each other. So communication is strengthened. Now this network-based or net-centric is a latest technique of warfare, because it has artificial intelligence, it has quantum computing built in, it has hyper velocity weapons like rail guns, which are not based on propellants, but it's based on electromagnetic projectiles. And such intersection of the command, control, communication, computers, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance are all paradigms of network-centric warfare. You know, we are living in the information age, and that's why future warfare is going to be network-centric. The emerging military response to the information age can be termed as network-centric. By effective networking of various warfighting enterprises dispersed geographically, how to create a good shared awareness among them to achieve the intent of the commander. Because that's the most synchronized effort is the most important thing we need. How, starting from electronic warfare, cyber warfare, information warfare, even bio warfare, how you can synchronize everything and achieve a winning side for your country. Every country should aim to make weapons that fit the fight instead of fighting the fight that fits their weapons. So that's why nowadays there is no demarcation between various warfares because of this network-centric warfare. We use every latest technologies, and here you have even killer robots and drones and every other thing in your thing. This model is almost similar. You can call it as Walmart model. What is a Walmart doing? It can manage to automatically order a light bulb every time it has sold one. Warehouses are all networked. And similarly, individual cash registers are all networked. So are the guys who sold Walmart, the bulbs are also networked. So that company could wire everyone together and become very efficient. The same way, even military forces can do that. Nations make war the same way they make wealth. Computer networks and efficient flow of information would act as a single coordinated organism. So that's why network-centric warfare is very, very important. Learning the network-centric warfare helps us to change the scenario. So I would like to take you into a little journey into the network-centric warfare. through my presentations. So the last time we saw about Asimo. Now this Asimo, that is a humanoid, has a perception, it has a cognition, it has an action, it is looking at the external world. Now this is a warfare. It is having a sensors to act. And then the sensors are giving the thinking capacity, and it has actuators to go and fire a target. Similarly, the swarms are also sent into the battlefield, and if one swarm is not working or affected, the other swarm senses it and comes and takes that position. So this is very, very important. Now, in a network-centric operation, you have all these sensors, weapons, communication, and computers, everything are integrated. So how would you do that? In computers, first you analyze using war gaming, how your satellite communication is bringing data, how your terrestrial communication, radio communication is bringing, what is your computer technology, how do you model it, how do you awareness modeling it, your resources, enemy's resources, your mission, enemy's mission, everything you put together, develop a war game. And then you have an information domain where communication of information among commanders, troops, platforms are happening. This side, it is cognitive domain where situation awareness, assessment, understanding, leadership, morale, everything is coming into picture. And then comes the human perception. The commander will have the human perception using his personal knowledge, his experience, his capabilities, and he uses the information domain, cognitive domain, and decides in the physical domain the defense or attack that can take place in the ground, sea, or air. So he gives commands based on all these things. So if I have to put together, it's this information flow in a battlefield. These are the sensors, these are the weapons, these are the communication, these are the control, and you flow, this information flow, seamless flow is the most important thing in a network-centric warfare. Now, the symbiotic relationship between war and technology is very, very important. That is why situation awareness, information, decision-making are all important. Now, in this case, you have this ODA cycle: observe, orient, decide, and act. First you observe, then you orient your forces, then you decide, then you act. But now everything has to be fast. The time should be exact. It should not go more. So for example, if your decision time takes long and your action time takes slow, the enemy can come inside and spoil your plan like this. Getting inside, now you can get into enemy's loop through this one by action impact on adversary. We should be very thankful for our military, army, navy, and air force. While we sleep peacefully at night, they stand without sleep on the borders protecting us. Because they are selfless and they are giving their all, we are able to be at peace. So thanking you all